The Valari Empire had conquered 17 star systems in 300 years. They moved from planet to planet like locusts, taking what they wanted and leaving nothing behind. Their ships were massive, their weapons powerful, and their soldiers feared across the galaxy. No civilization had ever defeated them. Most surrendered before the first shot was fired. When their scouts found Earth, they laughed. The blue planet had no shields protecting it, no weapons in orbit, no ships that could travel faster than light. The humans still fought wars among themselves with primitive weapons. They were divided into hundreds of nations that could barely agree on anything. Easy prey. Commander Tellus stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked at the planet below. He was tall, even for a Valari, with gray skin and 4 eyes that glowed faintly in the dim light. He had led invasions on 6 worlds. None had lasted more than 3 days. "Begin the descent," he ordered. 200 ships should be more than enough for this primitive rock. The invasion fleet broke through Earth's atmosphere on a Tuesday morning. They came down over the Pacific Ocean, blocking out the sun with their massive shadows. People on the beaches of Korea, Japan, and China looked up and saw death coming from the sky. Captain Park Jisoo was drinking her 3rd cup of coffee when the alarms started screaming. She was 34 years old, a former fighter pilot who now commanded Earth's Emergency Defense Center in Busan. The center had been built 5 years ago, after astronomers first detected signals from deep space. Most people thought it was a waste of money. Jisoo had always known better. She ran to the main control room, her boots echoing on the metal floor. Screens covered every wall, showing satellite feeds from around the world. What she saw made her stomach drop. "How many?" she asked. Lieutenant Kim Do-yoon looked up from his console. He was young, maybe 25, with nervous hands and sharp eyes. He had never seen real combat. None of them had. Not like this. 200 confirmed vessels, Captain. They're positioning over major population centers on every continent. Jisoo. Watch the dots spread across the map like a disease. Seoul, Tokyo, Beijing, New York, London, Moscow. They knew exactly where to hit. Any communication? They're broadcasting on all frequencies, Do-hyun said. He pressed a button, and a cold voice filled the room. People of Earth, you are now subjects of the Valari Empire. You will surrender your governments, your resources, and your labor. You have 6 hours to comply. Resistance will result in extinction. The message repeated, and repeated, and repeated. Jisoo felt fear crawling up her spine, but she pushed it down. Fear was useless. Fear got people killed. Get me connected to every defense network on the planet, she said. And someone find out how to hurt these things. 300 kilometers away, in a laboratory at KS University, Dr. Yoon Hana was already working on that exact problem. She was 31, small and thin, with hair she hadn't brushed in 2 days. Her specialty was electromagnetic pulse weapons, a theoretical field that most of her colleagues considered a dead end. Today, theory became reality. Her phone rang. She ignored it. It rang again. She ignored it again. Then soldiers burst through her door. "Dr. Yoon," the lead soldier said, "you need to come with us. The government needs your research." "My research isn't finished," Hana said, not looking up from her computer. "I need at least 5 more years of testing. You have 72 hours. Hana finally looked up. The soldier's face was pale. His hands were shaking. She realized then that this wasn't a drill. This wasn't a test. This was the end of the world. Unless she stopped it. "Show me to a lab," she said. "A real one." The Valari waited. Commander Tellus sat in his chair and watched the clock count down. He had done this many times before. The pattern was always the same. First came denial, then fear, then desperate attempts at negotiation. Finally, surrender. Humans would be no different. But as the hours passed, something strange happened. No surrender came. No begging. No desperate pleas for mercy. Instead, the planet below went dark. Satellites stopped transmitting. Communication networks went silent. What are they doing? Tellus asked. His second officer checked the sensors. Unknown, Commander. They appeared to be preparing. Preparing for what? They have nothing that can hurt us. On Earth, every nation had made the same decision. There would be no surrender. There would be no negotiation. If humanity was going to die, they would die fighting. In Washington, nuclear launch codes were unlocked. In Moscow, submarines received orders to surface. In Beijing, 1 million soldiers mobilized. In Seoul, Captain Park Ji-soo coordinated the largest military operation in human history. They think we're primitive, she told her team. They think we're weak because we fight each other. They don't understand that fighting is what we do best. Sergeant Baek Jun-ho heard those words through his radio as he led his squad through the streets of Seoul. He was 41, a veteran of 3 peacekeeping missions, built like a tank and twice as stubborn. His 20 soldiers followed him into the shadow of an alien ship that blocked out the sky. What's the plan, Sergeant? Private Oh Yuri asked. She was 22, the youngest in the squad, with scared eyes that she tried to hide. Jun-ho looked up at the massive vessel. It was bigger than anything he had ever seen. Weapons bristled from its hull like thorns. The plan is simple, he said. We make them regret coming here. The 6 hours ended. Commander Tellus waited for the surrender signal that never came. Instead, his sensors detected something else. Thousands of heat signatures rising from the planet's surface. Missiles, aircraft, ships, Earth was attacking. Tellus laughed. They actually think they can fight us. With those primitive weapons? He turned to his officers. Begin the extermination. The first Valari ground forces descended on 12 cities at once. Their soldiers were 8 feet tall, covered in armor that could stop bullets, carrying weapons that could melt steel. They expected terrified civilians running in panic. They expected easy victory. They found something else entirely. In Seoul, the first Valari soldier stepped off his dropship and immediately took a sniper round to his helmet. The shot didn't penetrate, but it staggered him. Before he could recover, an explosion tore through the street. Then another. Then another. Sergeant Junho watched from his position in a ruined building. Welcome to Earth, he muttered. Now get off our planet. The Valari had conquered 17 star systems. They had never lost a battle. They had never faced an enemy that refused to give up. They had never invaded humanity. And as the first night of the invasion fell, as fires burned across the globe and the screams of the dying filled the air, something unexpected happened. The Valari began to take casualties. Not many, not enough. But some. Captain Park Ji-soo watched the reports come in from her bunker. Cities were falling. Millions were dying. But here and there, humans were fighting back. And winning. She picked up her radio. This is Captain Park to all units. They can be hurt. They can be killed. Make them bleed for every inch of our world. Commander. Tellus stood on his bridge and felt something he hadn't felt in decades. Doubt. These humans were supposed to be primitive, weak, easy. He was beginning to wonder if he had made a terrible mistake. The first week of the invasion was hell on Earth. Valari soldiers marched through cities like giants, their plasma rifles turning buildings into ash. Their walking machines, massive metal beasts with 4 legs and heavy cannons, crushed cars and buses under their feet. Millions died. Entire neighborhoods disappeared in fire and smoke. But humanity did not break. Sergeant Beak Junho had not slept in 3 days. His squad of 20 was now down to 12. They moved through the ruins of Gangnam like ghosts, hiding in collapsed buildings and flooded subway tunnels. Every few hours, they struck. A grenade thrown at a patrol. A sniper shot at a sensor. Then they disappeared before the Valari could respond. Private. Oh, Yuri had changed in those 3 days. The fear was still there, but something else had grown alongside it. Anger. Cold, burning anger that kept her moving when her body wanted to collapse. Sergeant, she whispered, pointing through a crack in the wall. Patrol, 6 soldiers. Junho looked. 6 Valari, walking in formation through the rubble. Their armor gleamed in the dim light. Their weapons hummed with deadly energy. Too many, he said. We wait. We always wait. Yuri's voice was sharp. How long do we keep waiting while they kill our people? Junho turned to look at her. He saw the anger in her eyes, and he understood it. He felt it too. But anger without control was just another way to die. We wait, he said again, until we can win. Dying for nothing doesn't save anyone. Yuri looked away, but she nodded. She was learning. They all were. 500 kilometers south, Admiral Cho Sunwoo stood on the bridge of his submarine, deep beneath the Pacific Ocean. He was 53, with gray hair and a face carved from stone. He had served in the Navy for 30 years, preparing for wars that never came. Now the biggest war in human history had found him. Admiral, his officer said, the alien carrier is still positioned over Tokyo Bay. Our missiles are ready. Sunwoo studied the tactical display. The Valari carrier was enormous, a floating fortress bristling with weapons. Its shields had stopped everything the Japanese defense forces had thrown at it. Energy weapons, conventional missiles, even a desperate airstrike that cost the lives of 40 pilots. But Sunwoo had noticed something. The shields flickered when hit with physical objects. They were designed to absorb energy, not kinetic force. Load the heavy warheads, he ordered. Maximum speed, maximum impact. We're not trying to burn through their shields. We're going to punch through them. Sir, that's never been tested against alien technology. Then we test it now. 3 submarines surfaced simultaneously. Their hatches opened and missiles roared into the sky. Not energy weapons. Not lasers. Just tons of metal and explosives flying at 3 times the speed of sound. The Valari shields activated, glowing bright blue. The first missiles hit and exploded against the barrier. The second wave hit the same spot. Then the third. The shield flickered, sparked, died. The fourth wave of missiles slammed directly into the carrier's hull. Explosions tore through the alien vessel. Secondary blasts ripped it apart from the inside. The massive ship, a symbol of Valari power, fell from the sky like a wounded bird. It crashed into Tokyo Bay with a sound like thunder. The wave it created flooded the shoreline for miles. Admiral Sunwoo watched through his periscope. For the first time in a week, he smiled. Send a message to all naval forces, he said. Their shields can be broken. Focus kinetic weapons on single points. Overwhelm them. Word spread across the planet within hours. The aliens were not invincible. They could be hurt. They could be killed. Humanity learned fast. It was what they did best. In Seoul, Sergeant Junho received the news through his crackling radio. He looked at his squad, at their tired faces and wounded bodies, and he saw hope return to their eyes. New orders, he said. We're not just surviving anymore. We're hunting. That night, his squad attacked a Valari supply depot. They used stolen explosives and improvised weapons, striking fast and hard. 8 Valari soldiers died. The squad lost 2 more of their own, but when they retreated into the darkness, they carried alien weapons with them. Private Yuri held a plasma rifle in her hands. It was heavy and strange, covered in buttons she didn't understand. But when she pointed it at a wall and pulled the trigger, the wall disappeared. "We can use these," she said. "We can do better than use them," Junho replied. "We can learn from them." In Daejin, Dr. Yoon-hana was doing exactly that. Her new laboratory was underground, protected by meters of concrete and steel. Soldiers brought her alien technology every day, pieces recovered from battlefields across the country, weapons, armor, communication devices. She studied them all. She had not slept more than 2 hours at a time since the invasion began. Her eyes were red, her hands shaking from too much caffeine. But her mind was sharp, sharper than it had ever been. Fear and desperation had burned away everything unnecessary, leaving only focus. "Their weapons use a crystal power source," she explained to Captain Park Jisoo through a video call. "If we can replicate it, we can build weapons that match theirs. Maybe even better." "How long?" Jisoo asked. "Weeks, maybe months. You have days." Hana laughed, a bitter sound with no humor in it. "Then I'll do it in days." Across the world, similar stories played out. In Brazil, farmers used tractors and hunting rifles to ambush alien patrols. In Nigeria, a group of engineers built an MP device from car batteries and scrap metal, disabling an alien walker. In Russia, a retired general led a guerrilla army through the frozen wilderness, striking Valari outposts and vanishing into the snow. The Valari had expected Earth to fall in days. Instead, 3 weeks in, they controlled less than 30% of the planet's surface. Their casualties, though small by human standards, were unprecedented in their history. Commander Tella stood before a holographic map of Earth, watching red zones shrink and blue zones grow. Blue meant human resistance. Blue meant failure. "This is impossible," he said. "They have no unified command, no advanced technology, no experience fighting enemies like us. How are they doing this?" His second officer hesitated. "Perhaps, Commander, we underestimated their determination." "Determination?" Tella slammed his fist on the console. "Determination means nothing against superior firepower." But even as he said the words, he knew they were hollow. Firepower had always been enough before. Against the Valari, civilizations crumbled. Species surrendered. That was the natural order. Humans did not seem to care about the natural order. In Seoul, Captain Park Jisoo coordinated the global resistance from her bunker. She slept on a cot in the corner of the control room, eating military rations and drinking cold coffee. Her hair was unwashed, her uniform stained with dust and sweat. She had never felt more alive. "Status report," she said. Lieutenant Do-hyun pulled up the data. "Enemy forces are consolidating. They're pulling back from rural areas, focusing on major cities. It looks like they're preparing for something. A final push? Possibly. Or they're waiting for reinforcements." Jisoo nodded. "Then we hit them now, before those reinforcements arrive. Contact every resistance cell, every military unit, every civilian with a weapon. We attack tonight. All of us, everywhere." That night, humanity struck back with everything they had. It was messy, uncoordinated, and costly. Thousands died. But the Valari lost ground they could not afford to lose. Their supply lines were cut. Their communication networks were jammed. Their soldiers, for the first time, began to show signs of fear. Sergeant Junho found one of them hiding in a ruined building. The alien was wounded, its armor cracked, its weapon empty. When it saw Junho, it raised its hands in what might have been surrender. Junho hesitated. For a moment, he saw not a monster, but a scared soldier far from home. Then he remembered the millions dead, the cities in flames, the children crying in the rubble. He raised his weapon and fired. The second month of the war began with humanity still standing. Battered, bleeding, but unbroken. Commander Tellus sent a message to the Volari Empire, requesting reinforcements for the first time in his career. His superiors did not believe him. A primitive world resisting the Empire? Impossible. They would learn the truth soon enough. Everyone would. 2 months into the invasion, the Volari made a decision that would haunt them forever. Commander Tellus ordered his forces to retreat from the countryside and consolidate in the cities they still controlled. He thought this would make them stronger, easier to defend. He was wrong. He gave humanity room to breathe, room to grow, room to become something far more dangerous. Dr. Yoon Hana had not left her underground laboratory in 6 weeks. Her team of scientists worked in shifts, but she never stopped. Sleep came in stolen moments, 15 minutes here, half an hour there. Food was something she forgot about until her hands started shaking too badly to work. The alien rifle sat on her workbench, completely taken apart. Each piece was labeled, studied, documented. She understood it now. Not just how it worked, but why it worked. And more importantly, how to make it better. The crystal stores energy, she explained to her exhausted team, but it releases it inefficiently. Almost 60% is lost as heat. If we modify the focusing array, we can nearly double the output. With what materials? One of her colleagues asked. We don't have access to alien metals. No, but we have Korean steel. We have silicon. We have decades of semiconductor research. Hana smiled, and there was something fierce in it. They built their weapons to be elegant. We're going to build ours to be brutal. The first hybrid weapons rolled off the production line 3 days later. They looked ugly, a mess of alien crystals and human components held together with welded steel. But when Hannah fired one at a test target, it punched through Volari armor like paper. She sent the designs to every factory on Earth that was still standing. In Seoul, Captain Park Jisoo received a shipment of the new weapons. She held one in her hands, feeling its weight, its power. For the first time in weeks, she felt something other than desperate hope. Get these to the front lines, she ordered. And get me Sergeant Beak. Junho arrived at her bunker 3 hours later. He looked like he had aged 10 years since the invasion began. His face was scarred, his left arm bandaged, his eyes hollow. But he still stood straight, still saluted, still waited for orders. You've been fighting in the city for 2 months, Jisoo said. You know the Volari better than anyone. Their patterns, their weaknesses. I know how to kill them, Junho said simply. That's all that matters. It's not enough to kill them one by one. We need to break them. Make them afraid to step outside their ships. Jisoo pulled up a map of Seoul. I'm giving you command of all resistance forces in the city. 3,000 fighters. Your job is to make the Volari regret every moment they stay here. Junho studied the map. 3,000 fighters. It wasn't an army. It was a collection of soldiers, civilians, teenagers, and old men united only by their hatred of the invaders. Half of them had never held a weapon before the war. I'll need supplies, he said. Weapons, medicine, food. You'll get what we can spare. And I'll need her. He pointed at a name on the roster. Kang Minji, the schoolteacher from Daegu. Jisoo raised an eyebrow. She's killed more Volari than any other civilian fighter. 11 confirmed. She's valuable where she is. She's valuable because she understands how to turn ordinary people into killers. I need that skill. 2 days later, Kam Minji stood in the ruins of a shopping mall, facing 50 new recruits. She was 35, thin and unremarkable, with gentle eyes that hid something cold and sharp underneath. Before the invasion, she had taught 3rd grade. She had loved her students, loved watching them learn and grow. Now she taught adults how to murder. The Valari have 3 weak points, she said, holding up a captured alien helmet. The neck joint here, the knee joint here, and the visor here. Their armor is strong everywhere else, but these spots are vulnerable. If you can't hit these spots, don't waste your ammunition. A young man raised his hand. What if we can't get close enough to hit anything? Then you make them come to you. Minji smiled, and it did not reach her eyes. You learn to hide, to wait, to become invisible. And when they walk past you, when they think they're safe, you strike. 1 cut, 1 shot. Then you disappear. She had learned these lessons the hard way. Her first kill had been an accident, a desperate swing with a kitchen knife when a Valari soldier broke into her apartment. The second and third had been deliberate. By the 11th, she had stopped counting. War changed people. Minji had accepted that. She would mourn the person she used to be after the war was over, if there was an after. Across the world, humanity adapted in ways the Valari never expected. In Germany, engineers built electromagnetic pulse bombs that could disable alien electronics. In India, chemists discovered that a common industrial solvent could eat through Valari armor if applied correctly. In Canada, a teenage hacker found a backdoor into the alien communication network and began feeding them false information. Engineer Shin Tai-woo became a legend among the resistance. He was 28, with messy hair and oil-stained hands, a man who had spent his life building machines. Now he took those machines apart. Their walkers have a balanced system in the core, he told a room full of soldiers. Disrupt it, and the whole thing falls over. A well-placed explosive right here will do the job. He showed them how to build the explosives from household materials, how to plant them without being seen, how to escape before the blast. The first walker fell 3 days later. Then another. Then another. By the end of the month, the Valari had lost 20 of the massive machines. They started moving their walkers in pairs, then groups, then not at all. Commander Tellus watched his advantages disappear one by one. His superior technology was being countered. His invincible soldiers were dying. His communication networks were compromised. He sent another request for reinforcements. Again, his superiors refused. The situation could not possibly be as bad as he described. Earth was a primitive world. Victory was inevitable. Telos began to wonder if his superiors had ever actually fought a war. In Seoul, Sergeant Junho led his forces in a new kind of battle. They did not try to hold territory or defend positions. They struck from shadows, attacked supply lines, assassinated officers, and vanished before the enemy could respond. The Valari controlled the cities, but they did not control the night. Private Yuri, promoted to corporal after her 20th confirmed kill, became one of his most trusted soldiers. She had changed completely from the scared girl she had been. Now she moved through the ruins like a predator, silent and deadly, her eyes always searching for the next target. "They're scared," she said one night, watching a Valari patrol from a rooftop. "Look at how they move, checking every shadow, jumping at every sound." "Good," Junho said. "Scared enemies make mistakes. Is that enough? Scaring them?" "No." Junho checked his weapon, one of the new hybrids that could punch through alien armor. "But it's a start. We scare them, we slow them, we bleed them. And eventually, we break them." Below them, the Valari patrol stopped at an intersection. They looked around nervously, their weapons ready. They had learned to fear the darkness. They had not learned enough. Junho gave the signal. His squad opened fire from 3 directions. The Valari never had a chance. In 30 seconds, it was over. Another patrol eliminated. Another small victory in a war of thousands. 3 months into the invasion, the Valari controlled only 15% of Earth's surface. Their losses mounted daily. Their soldiers, once confident and proud, now moved with the caution of prey animals. Commander Telos made a decision. If he could not conquer Earth through ground warfare, he would destroy it from orbit. His ships still controlled the skies. His weapons could still burn cities to ash. If humans would not submit, they would be exterminated. He began preparing his fleet for orbital bombardment. In 72 hours, he would turn Earth's major cities into craters. He did not know that intelligence officer M. Yunji had already broken his communication codes. He did not know that his plans were being transmitted to every resistance cell on the planet. He did not know that humanity was about to strike back harder than he ever imagined possible. The countdown had begun. Intelligence officer M. Yunji had not stopped working since the invasion began. She sat in a cramped room filled with computers and cables, listening to alien signals that sounded like static to everyone else. To her, they were words, secrets, death sentences. She was 29, with tired eyes and fingers that moved across keyboards faster than thought. Before the war, she had worked for the National Intelligence Service, tracking foreign communications. Now she tracked signals from another world. The message she intercepted that night made her blood run cold. Orbital bombardment authorized. The translation read, Target, all major human population centers. Timeline, 72 hours. Expected casualties, 4 billion. 4 billion. Half of humanity burned to ash from space. Yunji ran to Captain Park Jisu's command center, her heart pounding so hard she could barely breathe. She burst through the door without knocking, something she would never have done before. But there was no time for protocol. No time for anything except survival. They're going to kill us all, she said, throwing the transcript on Jisu's desk. From orbit. We can't stop it from the ground. Jisu read the message. Her face went pale, but her hands stayed steady. She had learned to control her fear. Fear was a luxury she could not afford. How confident are you in this translation? Completely. I've been studying their language for 3 months. This is real. Jisu picked up her radio. Get me Admiral Cho. Get me every military commander on the planet. And get me a line to the International Space Station. 7,000 kilometers above Earth. Astronaut No Yemen floated in the observation module of the ISS, watching the planet below. He had been stranded up here since the invasion began. The resupply missions had stopped. The evacuation ships had never come. He was alone with 2 other astronauts, watching their world burn from the safest seat in the universe. He was 36, a former Air Force pilot who had dreamed of space since he was a child. Now, that dream had become a prison. He could see the fires, the explosions, the dark spots where cities used to be, and he could do nothing but watch. When Captain Jisu's message came through, he thought it was a mistake. You want me to do what? The Valari command ship is in low orbit, Jisu explained, her voice crackling through the ancient communication system. If we can destroy it, the bombardment will be delayed. Maybe stopped entirely. I'm not a weapon. The station isn't a weapon. The station weighs 400 tons. At orbital velocity, it's the biggest weapon we have. Yemen looked at his crewmates. They were listening on the same channel. He saw fear in their eyes, but something else too. Resolution. The same resolution he felt growing in his own chest. The other 2 astronauts, he said, they don't have to be part of this. No, they don't. He turned to them. One was American, one was Russian. They had become family over the past 3 months, united by isolation and helplessness. Now they had a chance to matter. I won't ask you to come with me, Yemen said. The American smiled sadly. We didn't come up here to watch our planet die. The Russian nodded. Together. It is better. Yemen felt tears in his eyes, but he blinked them away. There was work to do. On Earth, the attack began before the station moved. Admiral Cho Sunwoo coordinated the largest military operation in human history. Every submarine, every missile battery, every aircraft that could still fly, every ship that could still float. All of them striking at once. The Valari fleet was caught off guard. They had been preparing for bombardment, not defense. Missiles slammed into their shields from every direction. EMP bursts disrupted their systems. Captured alien weapons turned against their creators. Sergeant Junho led the ground assault on a Valari base in Seoul. 3,000 fighters stormed the perimeter, using every weapon they had. Hybrid rifles, improvised explosives, captured plasma cannons. Some of them charged with nothing but knives and rage. Corporal Yuri was among the first through the gates. She moved like water, flowing around obstacles, finding targets, pulling triggers. She had stopped counting her kills long ago. The number didn't matter. Only the mission mattered. Push forward, Junho shouted over the chaos. Don't let them regroup. The Valari fought back with desperate fury. They knew what was at stake. If the ground assault succeeded, if their ships were damaged, the bombardment would fail. Their entire invasion would fail. But humans had been fighting for 3 months. They knew the enemy's tactics. They knew the weak points. And they had something the Valari had never faced before. A species with nothing left to lose. In space, astronaut Yemen guided the ISS toward the Valari command ship. The station was never meant to maneuver like this. Its engines were designed for small corrections, not aggressive movement. Warning lights flashed everywhere. Systems screamed alarms. The hull groaned under the stress. Impact in 3 minutes, the computer announced. Yemen strapped himself into the command module. Through the window, he could see the alien ship growing larger. It was shaped like a blade, sleek and deadly, covered in weapons that could burn cities. Commander Telos was on that ship, the architect of humanity's suffering. This is astronaut No Yemen of the Korean Aerospace Agency. He transmitted on all frequencies. To the people of Earth, don't give up. Don't ever give up. This is not the end. This is just the beginning. He closed his eyes and thought of his mother, his father, his sister in Bizan. He hoped they were alive. He hoped they would understand. This is humanity, he said. We don't surrender. The ISS hit the Valari command ship at 17,000 kilometers per hour. The impact was visible from Earth, a flash of light brighter than any star. The command ship broke apart, its pieces scattering across the sky like falling embers. Commander Telos died instantly. He never understood what killed him. He never understood humans at all. On the ground, the Valari felt their commander's death like a physical blow. Their coordination collapsed. Their communications failed. Their soldiers, already struggling against the human assault, began to panic. Sergeant Junho saw the explosion in the sky. He saw the alien soldiers hesitate, confusion replacing aggression. And he knew this was the moment. Now, he screamed. Hit them now. The humans surged forward. 3 months of fear and anger and grief exploded into violence. The Valari fell back, then broke, then ran. For the first time in their empire's history, they retreated from an enemy they had come to conquer. In Seoul, the Korean flag rose over the ruins of City Hall. Corporal Yuri planted it herself, her hands shaking with exhaustion and emotion. She looked around at the survivors, the fighters, the ordinary people who had become warriors. They had won. Not the war, not yet, but this battle, this city, this moment. In her laboratory, Dr. Yoon Hana watched the reports come in. Victory after victory, city after city. The Valari were retreating to their ships, preparing to leave orbit. The bombardment had been stopped. She sat down heavily, her legs finally giving out. For the first time in 3 months, she had no work to do. No deadline to meet. No impossible problem to solve. She began to cry. Not from sadness, but from relief so overwhelming it felt like drowning. Captain Park Jisoo stood in her command center, watching the Valari fleet pull away from Earth. They were not destroyed. They would be back, maybe with reinforcements, maybe with bigger weapons. The war was not over. But today, humanity had survived. Today, they had proven something important. They could win. She picked up her radio. "This is Captain Park to all forces. The enemy is retreating. Secure your positions. Tend to your wounded. Remember your dead." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "And prepare for what comes next, because this is not the end. This is just the beginning of a much longer fight." In the ruins of Seoul, Sergeant Junho sat with his back against the wall, watching the smoke rise into the dawn sky. Corporal Yuri sat beside him, silent and still. Around them, fighters rested, some sleeping, some crying, some staring at nothing. "What now?" Yuri asked quietly. Junho thought about the question. They had lost so much. Family, friends, cities, millions of lives that could never be recovered. The world they knew was gone forever, but they were still here, still breathing, still fighting. "Now," he said, "we rebuild. We get stronger, and we make sure this never happens again." High above, the last Valari ships disappeared into the darkness between stars. They carried survivors who would tell stories of the planet that fought back, the primitive world that refused to die. Earth had sent a message to the universe that night. Humanity was not prey. Humanity was a predator that had just learned it was not alone. The survivors of the Valari invasion fleet limped home through the darkness between stars. Out of 50,000 soldiers, fewer than 2,000 remained. Out of 200 warships, only 37 could still fly. They carried with them stories that their empire refused to believe. A primitive world had broken them. A species without faster-than-light travel, without planetary shields, without any of the technology that made civilizations powerful, had fought back and won. It was impossible. It was unthinkable. The Valari High Council dismissed the reports as exaggeration. Commander Tellus had been weak, they decided. Incompetent. Any other commander would have succeeded. Earth was nothing special. Just a temporary setback in an empire that had never known defeat. They were about to learn how wrong they were. On Earth, the rebuilding began immediately. Cities were ruins. Infrastructure was shattered. Billions were homeless, hungry, grieving. The task seemed impossible, like trying to rebuild a house after an earthquake while standing in the rubble. But humans had done impossible things before. Captain Park Jisoo stood on a platform in the center of what used to be Seoul, facing a crowd of thousands. Soldiers, civilians, survivors from every corner of the country had gathered to hear her speak. Behind her, the Korean flag flew above the ruins, bright red and blue against the gray sky. She had not planned a speech. She did not have time for speeches anymore. But the people needed to hear something, needed to feel something other than despair. So she spoke from her heart. 3 months ago, they came to conquer us. They thought we would surrender. They thought we would break. They thought we were easy prey because we didn't have their weapons, their ships, their technology. She paused, letting the words settle. They were wrong. The crowd stirred. Some nodded. Some wiped tears from their eyes. We lost millions. We lost cities. We lost friends and family and everything we thought our world would be. That pain is real. That grief is real. We will carry it with us forever. She stepped forward, her voice growing stronger. But we also proved something. We proved that technology doesn't win wars. Numbers don't win wars. What wins wars is the will to fight, the refusal to give up, the determination to survive no matter the cost. She raised her fist. They came for our planet. We sent them home bleeding. The crowd erupted in cheers. Not joyful cheers, not celebration, but something deeper. Defiance, pride, the sound of a species that had been pushed to the edge of extinction and had pushed back. In the weeks that followed, humanity transformed. The divisions that had defined them for centuries, the borders and nations and conflicts, seemed smaller now. Not gone, not forgotten, but less important than they had been before. They had faced extinction together. They had survived together. That shared experience bound them in ways no treaty or alliance ever could. Dr. Yoon Hana led a new research institute, funded by every nation on Earth. Its mission was simple. Take everything they had learned from the Valari and use it to make humanity stronger. Weapons, shields, engines, everything. They left behind a fortune in technology, she explained to her team. We're going to reverse engineer every piece of it. And then we're going to improve it. Within 6 months, the first human spacecraft with faster-than-light capability was under construction. They called it the Unyielding, named for the human spirit that had refused to break. It was not elegant like Valari ships. It was rough, angular, covered in weapons and armor. It looked like what it was, a warship built by survivors. Engineer Shin Tai-woo oversaw the weapon systems. He had spent his life building machines. Now he built instruments of war. The Valari designed their weapons for efficiency, he said, adjusting a targeting array. We're designing ours for overkill. When we shoot, we want to make sure whatever we're shooting at stays dead. Kam Min-ji, the former schoolteacher who had killed 11 Valari with a kitchen knife, now trained the first generation of human space marines. She taught them everything she knew about fighting, surviving, and killing. She taught them that mercy was a luxury they could not afford. Not yet. Not until humanity was safe. Out there, she told her recruits, pointing at the stars, every species is a potential threat. Every planet could hide enemies. You will be the first line of defense. The first to fight. Maybe the first to die. She looked at their young faces, so different from the third graders she used to teach. Make sure it's worth it. Sergeant Beat Jung-ho and Corporal Oh Yuri were among those recruits. They had fought through the worst months of the invasion. They had lost friends, killed enemies, survived horrors that would haunt them forever. Now they trained for a new kind of war. Do you ever think about what comes next? Yuri asked one night, sitting on the roof of their barracks, looking at the stars. What do you mean? We're building warships, training soldiers, preparing for war. She paused. What if the next species we meet isn't hostile? What if they just want to talk? Jun-ho considered the question. A year ago, he might have believed in peaceful first contact, in diplomacy and understanding. But the invasion had changed him. Changed all of them. Then we talk, he said finally. But we talk with weapons at our sides. We never forget what the Valari taught us. What's that? That the universe doesn't care about fairness, about justice, about who deserves to survive. He looked at her, his eyes hard. The universe only cares about strength. And we are going to be strong. 5 years after the invasion, the Rock's Unyielding launched from Earth orbit. It was the first of many ships, a fleet being built to carry humanity to the stars. Admiral Park Jisoo stood on its bridge, looking through the viewport at the planet that had nearly died. Set course for Valari space, she ordered. Lieutenant Commander Kim Do-yoon, now her second-in-command, looked up from his console. The Council approved peaceful contact, Admiral. We're supposed to be ambassadors. We are ambassadors. Jisoo smiled, and it was not a kind smile. We're going to deliver a message. One they'll never forget. The unyielding jumped to faster than light speed, vanishing from Earth's sky in a flash of blue light. It crossed the distance that had taken the Volari weeks in just days. Human engineers had not just copied their technology. They had improved it. When the unyielding appeared in Volari space, it was greeted by a dozen warships. Alarms screamed across the alien fleet. Weapons powered up. Shields activated. "They're targeting us," Doyen reported. "Let them." Jisoo activated the communication array. "This is Admiral Park Jisoo of the Earth Defense Fleet. I am here to deliver a message to the Volari Empire and to any other civilization. Listening." She waited until she was sure every frequency was carrying her voice. Then she spoke. "5 years ago, you invaded our planet. You thought we were primitive, weak, easy to conquer. You killed millions of our people. You destroyed our cities. You tried to wipe us from existence." Her voice hardened. "You failed. We didn't just survive. We learned. We adapted. We took your technology and made it better. Now we have ships that can outrun yours. Weapons that can destroy yours. Soldiers who will never surrender, never retreat, never stop fighting." She leaned forward, staring at the alien fleet through the viewport. "We did not come here for revenge. We came here to make something clear. Earth is no longer a primitive world. Humanity is no longer prey. And anyone who threatens us will face consequences they cannot imagine." She paused, letting the words sink in. "We are humanity. We survived ice ages and plagues and wars among ourselves. We survived extinction events that killed 90% of all life on our planet. We survived you, and we will survive whatever else the universe throws at us. This is not a threat. This is a promise. Leave us alone, and we will leave you alone. Attack us, and we will burn your empire to ash." She smiled again. "We thought you should know. We're coming. Not to conquer. Not to enslave. But to take our place among the stars. And we will not be stopped by anyone, ever." The transmission ended. The Volari fleet held its position, weapons still charged, but not firing. They had heard the message. They had understood it. Admiral Jisoo turned the unyielding around and jumped back toward Earth. Behind her, the Volari began transmitting the message to every corner of their empire. Within weeks, every spacefaring civilization in the galaxy had heard it. A new species had emerged from an insignificant planet in an unremarkable system. A species that had been attacked, beaten, nearly destroyed. A species that had fought back and won. Humanity had arrived, and the universe would never be the same.